Well, one of the great things you can do about comics, if you've got your own YouTube channel, is pretty much whatever you want. And today we're talking about Rom Spaceknight. Hey everybody, this is Perch, and we're going to review Rom Spaceknight #1 from 1979. This was a Marvel comic, 40 cents, and this was the introduction of Rom by Bill Mantlo and Sal Buscema. And the origins to Rom are pretty nuts. So a lot of people will basically just know the Rom from kind of the toys. So this was an attempt to kind of cross over. This was a toy that was I believe for Parker Brothers, which later became Hasbro. The toy was licensed to Marvel, and so then they shot the character into the comic books pretty soon after. I'm trying to remember when the toy actually came out. I think that it was right about the same time. It was, I know that it was, maybe even at the same time, at any rate. But basically, this toy got a remarkable amount of promotion. It showed up on Time magazine, and it kind of became this this thing that was indicative of kind of toys in the 70s and everything else. And so Marvel would go on to publish quite a few issues, basically for about 6-7 years through the basically the early to mid 80s. And lots of adventures with Rom, and then kind of the license seemed to expire or basically go away, and then briefly the IDW did some stuff with Rom for a while, and there's probably a whole other video around where this thing got all sideways in terms of licensing and everything else. And now at least there's some sense that Rom may appear back at some point because Rom doesn't have the licensing rights. But Marvel has basically kind of moved around by publishing a few things, talking about Space Knights, and they kind of sneak in little hints of Rom. And there's been lots of kind of angry, dire warnings to people at Marvel in the past by management saying, don't sneak in Easter eggs of Rom because we can get sued, there can be problems. So anyway, it's a fun little adventure. So basically, getting into this comic though, because this comic is a hell of a lot of fun in many ways, very much 70s. So Rom basically comes plummeting to Earth and lands in the quiet little location of, where is it? West Virginia, I think. Yep, West Virginia. So why not? Rom appears in West Virginia. He crashes into the road, and sure enough, a woman driving a car encounters him, swerves out of the way, and he manages to save the car from plummeting off of an inconvenient bridge of some kind. And as the woman gets out to kind of wonder what's going on, why did this Iron Man looking thing just stand in the middle of the road? Rom decides to turn his little energy analyzer, which was totally a toy thing. Basically, could kind of shoot little red light out. That was kind of the key there. So anyway, he blasts her with some red light, and but nothing happens. And so she's pleased to not be dead, and Rom, satisfied that she's a real woman, basically blasts on off, leaving her to wonder what was that all about. So. As time goes by, we get back to the sleepy little town of Clariton, population 14,000. A nice little sleepy community, has all the trappings of a current or 1970s town, which is mainly just kind of mostly white people. Anyway, so as they're just going about their business, Rom suddenly appears and starts, waving his analyzer around at people. And we see some people saying, oh, it's him. How did he track us here? Oh, no, he found us. And as Rom is kind of checking things out, he washes his red ray across things. But in doing so, he reveals these sneaky people who are talking about there's no place for us to run now. So the energy washes over them, and Rom then switches the analyzer to the neutralizer. The energy disappears from one hand and the neutralizer appears in the other, and then he burns the hell out of these people and just disintegrates them into ash. And so the population is looking around as this crazy armored space creature here, and just two piles of ash, just dead in the ground. So the woman that was spared the previous night happens upon this scene, and she's like, "What are you doing? You're a monster. You're a murderer. Don't touch me." And the mayor's like trying to get people on the phone, and but they won't put the mayor through. But some of the police know where to go. They've got a special pipeline into the Pentagon. So they talk to some kind of shadowy person, and they get some of the army to come in. And meanwhile, the Rom basically has taken the young woman out into the forest on the outskirts of the town, which is always what you want to do when you're innocent. So he starts talking using his translator device from hyperspace. So basically, these are all the accessories that you can get with that toy. So anyway, he explains that he didn't neutralize humans. Instead, he neutralized threats. And so this leads to a little bit of a flashback where you learn about the planet Galador and how the planet Galador is threatened by the Dire race. They're a technologically advanced race, kind of like the Skrulls, but not quite the Skrulls. And basically they're out for violence, and they're going to take over the galaxy here. And this is a good old Galador. Like they walk around with swords. They got these wacky 70s outfits, and they had like the little embroidery in the front, the giant collars and swords. This is like a nice peaceful 70s culture out in space. So they're at war with the Dire race, and they figure the only way to kind of be able to get an edge is when a scientist or a noble youth, the prime director named Rom, basically sorry, he's not the prime director. I don't know what he is. Rom is just a guy, and he's got long hair, and he's like, he wants to offer his life to serve and save Galador. So he tells us the prime director. He's not the prime director. So anyway, they all go into the healing centers, but instead of healing, they graft basically metal parts. They make them into cyborg warriors called Spaceknights. And so that their humanity would be preserved, basically. And then once the danger is over, the humanity will, go back into them somehow. That turns out to be quite a little trick. But anyway, Rom volunteers, and he's transformed into this creature that we've seen in the comic. He's like a big kind of armored warrior, and he is given the greatest weapon, which is the neutralizer that could banish the race into the limbo dimension forever. So other Galadorians volunteer, and eventually 1,000 of them were turned into these Space Knights. And so the Space Knights push back the Dire Wraith invasion, but Rom decides to, basically keep tracking them down, and the Dire Wraiths are able to escape using their sorcery tricks. So he swears an oath that he will not regain his humanity until all the Dire Wraiths have been vanquished, and he takes off to go, basically go hunt them down to stop this stuff. So anyway, so that brings us back today. So this is basically where Rom has showed up on planet Earth to hunt down these Dire Wraiths and banish them off to limbo and end this terrible, terrible diabolical threat, where if they're allowed to continue, they could consume the Earth and basically, take over the planet. So as Rom's explaining all this, the army shows up in a ton of tanks, and they just start firing away. And Rom's immediately suspicious of this. So he takes out the energy analyzer toy, and he just starts checking them all out. Who's actually a Dire Wraith? And as he's doing this, they're just firing like crazy on him. So he kind of seems to abandon the analyzer for a little bit, and says, hey, why are you attacking me? There's some monsters in your ranks. What's going on here? And the army's like, what the hell? And so he immediately just starts smashing the tanks and saying, your pale, pitiful fire cannot harm me. And so he's wrecking things up pretty good. Meanwhile, over in the corner, a couple of these Dire Wraith people who are disguised as humans are saying, the jig's up. What are we going to do? So Rom proceeds to destroy everything, but one of the villains pulls out a special gun, a gun like nobody has seen before. And it hurts Rom, but it also alerts Rom to the fact that this isn't a human. A human wouldn't have a pink gun like this. Crazy talk. And so pulling out the neutralizer, he blasts this Wraith into limbo and disintegrates some more people. And, he's the woman tries to help him, but, Rom basically roasts them all, and we get more ash bodies there on the ground. And his quest goes on, flying away. He's on the army is hunting him, and it's bad news. He's a big threat, but he's got to keep facing the dire race down, even though the humans are definitely think he's one of the enemies. And the woman is gone without leaving a word of thanks. All I've got are my doubts. I have to trust this guy. Maybe he's crazy. But as she's pondering this back in Clariton, the evil dire wraith telephone switch operator calls the Pentagon and says, our people must be warned that Rom is here, and we better get ready to fight. And that's our first issue, which is with an issue next month promising By Love Betrayed. But anyway, that's Rom. So like I said, Rom went on for quite a while and would eventually cross over with Power Man and Iron Fist, the Fantastic Four, the Thing, the Hulk, the X-Men. He was a core part of the Marvel Universe in the early 80s, and basically murdered off a ton of dire wraith in this. He was just making little ash body piles all over the place. Anyway, so all good stuff. And eventually he gets his humanity back, and that's cool. So, so some good stuff. It was a fun little comic, definitely a time capsule of a book. Wouldn't work today exactly, but why not? Let's see what they can do. IDW would come out and do it, and it really didn't come in anywhere close to having the same kind of popularity. But it's all fun. This was a time when toys and comics were all merged together. It's great. Anyway, did you read Rom? Did you like it? What'd you think of it? Leave a comment below. Like, subscribe, click the bell for notifications. Weren't expecting this review this week, were you? Haha. All right. Well, most importantly, thanks for listening.